Captain Jake Morrison walked across the metal bridge of his ship, the U.S. Defiant. Through the big window in front of him, he could see strange ships coming closer. They looked like giant black insects made of metal and something that seemed alive. The alien ships had lights running along their sides that blinked in patterns he had never seen before. Jake had been captain of this ship for 3 years. He was 42 years old with short brown hair and tired eyes. He had joined the Space Navy to explore new worlds and meet new people from other planets. He never thought his first meeting with aliens would be like this. "Sir, they want to talk to us," said Lisa Grant from her seat at the communications desk. She was 28 with red hair tied back in a neat bun. Her fingers moved quickly over the blue lights on her control panel. "The computer is ready to translate their language." Jake nodded and straightened his blue uniform. The main screen in front of the bridge flickered and changed. Soon he was looking at something that made his stomach feel tight with fear. The alien on the screen was tall and thin with 4 arms. Its skin looked like it was made of dark green metal plates that moved when it breathed. Its head was long with 2 big compound eyes, like a fly might have, but much larger. Scars covered its face in patterns that looked deliberate. When it opened its mouth to speak, Jake could see rows of sharp teeth. "Hello, small mammals," the alien said. Its voice was deep and rough, like metal scraping against stone. "I am High Commander Vextar of the Zephyrian Dominion. You will give us your ship and do what we tell you. This part of space belongs to us now." Jake felt his hands make fists at his sides. 3 weeks ago, he had been so excited about making first contact with aliens. Earth's government had given him thick books full of rules about how to talk to new species. Be polite, they said. Be respectful. Try to make friends. Those books seemed useless now. Behind Jake, Ben Carter sat at the weapons control station. Ben was 35, with black hair and steady hands. He had fought in Earth's last war against the Mars colonies. His finger moved to hover over the button. That would charge their weapons, but he waited for Jake's order. "High Commander," Jake said, trying to keep his voice calm and strong. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earth ship Defiant. According to the Galactic Accords, this is neutral space. We are here on a peaceful mission to explore and learn." The alien commander made a sound that might have been laughing, but it sounded like breaking glass. Its compound eyes seemed to shine with cruel amusement. "Neutral? Peaceful? Your kind makes me laugh, human. There is no such thing as neutral in space. There are only 2 kinds of creatures in the universe. Those who are strong and take what they want, and those who are weak and get eaten. Which one are you?" Jake looked around his bridge at his crew. Lisa watched him with worried eyes, waiting to see what he would do. Ben's jaw was tight with anger. At the engineering station, Amy Rodriguez monitored their ship's power systems. She was 39, with gray streaks in her black hair, and hands that were always steady, no matter how bad things got. At the science station, Dan Parker studied the alien ships with his instruments. Dan was the youngest member of the crew at 26, with messy blonde hair and thick glasses that made his eyes look bigger. All of them were looking at Jake, waiting for him to decide what humanity would say to its first alien contact. "We are explorers," Jake said finally. "We travel through space to learn new things and meet new people. We want to be friends with other species." High Commander Vextar's laughter was louder this time, and it made everyone on the bridge feel cold inside. Explorers. How sweet, how weak. "Very well, explorer. Since you will not give me your ship, you leave me no choice. By the old laws of my people, I declare you an enemy of the Zephyrian Dominion. Congratulations, little human. You and your entire species have just declared war on the galaxy's most brutal race. The screen went black. For a moment, nobody on. The bridge said anything. They all stared at the empty screen, trying to understand what had just happened. Earth had been alone in the universe for so long. Now, in the space of 5 minutes, humanity had made first contact and started a war. "Sir," Ben said quietly, his voice tight with tension, "their ships are getting ready to shoot at us." Jake felt his heart beating fast in his chest. Earth was 70 light years away. The nearest human colony was on New Boston, 45 light years in the other direction. They were alone out here with one ship against 6 alien vessels that were bigger and probably had better weapons. "Red alert," Jake ordered. "All crew to battle stations. Dan, I need you to tell me everything you can about those ships. Amy, give me all the power you can. Lisa, send a message to Earth Command. Tell them we have made contact with hostile aliens and need help." Red lights began flashing throughout the ship. The computer's voice echoed in the hallways, telling everyone to get ready for battle. Jake could hear his crew members running to their positions. "Captain," Amy called from her station, "their ships are much bigger than ours. Each one is probably 3 times the size of the Defiant. But our engines are faster, and we can turn quicker." "Sir," Dan added, looking up from his instruments, "I'm reading some strange energy patterns from their ships. Parts of their hulls seem to be alive somehow, like they grew their ships instead of building them. How long until help arrives?" Jake asked Lisa. Lisa's face was pale as she looked at her communications panel. "Sir, even if Earth sends ships right now, it will take them at least 2 weeks to get here. We're on our own." Through the main window, Jake could see the alien ships moving into an attack formation. They moved smoothly, like they had done this many times before. Their weapons were beginning to glow with dangerous energy. Jake thought about Earth, about his sister Jenny, who lived in New York with her 2 children, about his parents, who still lived in the small town in Ohio where he grew up, about the millions of people on Earth who were going about their normal lives, not knowing that their planet was now at war with aliens they had never heard of. He thought about all the human colonies scattered among the stars. Farmers on New Boston growing food for Earth. Miners on Titan Station digging for rare metals. Scientists on research stations studying distant suns. All of them were now targets of an alien empire that seemed to enjoy war. "Sir," Ben said, "they're almost in weapons range." Jake sat down in his captain's chair and gripped the armrests. His ship was small and his crew was young, but they were human. Humans had survived ice ages and wars and plagues and everything else the universe had thrown at them. They had climbed out of caves and built spaceships. They had learned to work together even when they disagreed about everything else. Maybe that would be enough. "All stations, prepare for combat," Jake announced, over the ship's communication system. "This is not the first contact we hoped for, but it's the one we got. We're going to show these aliens that humans don't give up easy. We're going to fight for our ship, for our crew, and for everyone back on Earth who's counting on us." The first alien energy beam lit up space between the ships, barely missing the Defiant's hull. The war between humanity and the Zephyrian Dominion had begun with a single word. No. 3 hours after the first battle, the U.S. Defiant moved slowly through space like a wounded animal. Burn marks covered her white hull where alien weapons had hit her. Smoke came from holes in her side where metal had melted. The engines made strange noises and only worked at half power. But the ship was still flying, and more importantly, she was not alone anymore. Captain Jake Morrison stood on his bridge looking at the damage reports on his screen. His uniform was torn and dirty. A cut on his forehead had dried blood on it. Around him, his crew worked at stations that sparked and flickered from battle damage. "Captain, we have another ship calling us," Lisa Grant said from her communications. Post. Her red hair had come loose from its bun and hung around her face. It's the U.E.'s Ranger. Captain Kelly Brooks wants to join us. Jake felt relief wash over him like cold water. Through the main window, he could see 2 more Earthships dropping out of faster-than-light travel. The Ranger was bigger than the Defiant, with heavier weapons and stronger shields. Next to her came the smaller scout ship Phoenix, fast and quick like her name suggested. Tell them they can join our formation, Jake said, and put me through to both captains. The main screen split to show 2 faces. Captain Kelly Brooks looked like she had been fighting wars her whole life. She had steel-gray hair cut short and eyes that never seemed to blink. She was 55 years old and had been in space longer than Jake had been alive. Next to her was Lieutenant Commander Rick Stone, younger at 32, with the kind of intense focus that made him dangerous in a fight. Jake, Kelly said without wasting time on greetings, we got your emergency message. Earth Command is sending everything they can, but it will take weeks for the main fleet to get here. What are we facing? Jake looked at his tactical display, where 6 red dots showed the alien ships. 6 Zephyrian vessels, all bigger than our ships. Their technology is about the same as ours, maybe a little worse in some ways, but they have more ships, and they have been fighting wars for thousands of years. Any good news? Rick asked. His ship Phoenix was small but fast, built for scouting and quick attacks. Dan Parker looked up from his science station. His glasses were cracked, but he could still see his instruments. Actually, sir, there might be some good news. I have been studying the pieces of alien ship we shot off during the first battle. Their ships are part machine and part living creature. It makes them very tough and able to heal small damage by themselves, but it also gives them some weaknesses. What kind of weaknesses? Kelly asked, leaning forward in her captain's chair. Their hulls are alive, so they respond to certain kinds of energy. If we can change our weapons to the right frequency, we might be able to hurt their biological systems instead of just their armor. On the main screen, the alien fleet had regrouped and was moving toward the 3 human ships again. The Zephyrian vessels moved in perfect formation, like they were all controlled by one mind. High Commander Vextara's ugly face appeared on the yaw. Communications channel. Humans, you fight better than I expected for prey animals, the alien commander said. His voice still sounded like grinding metal. But your friends only delay what must happen. Give up now, and I will let you die in single combat with honor instead of being torn apart by my hunters. Jake looked at Kelly and Rick on his screen. Kelly's face showed the hard determination of someone who had never backed down from a fight. Rick had the eager look of a younger officer who wanted to prove himself. Behind them, Jake could see their bridge crews working at their stations, ready to follow their captains into battle. Jake thought about Earth again, about his family and friends who did not even know there was a war happening, about the children playing in parks while alien ships prepared to attack their world, about everything that made humanity worth fighting for. High Commander, Jake said into the communications channel, I have a different offer for you. How about you and your ships turn around and go home before you find out just how brutal humans can be when someone threatens our families? The silence that followed seemed to last forever. When Vextar finally spoke, his voice was full of anger and dark promises. Interesting, the alien said. Very well, humans. Let us see which species truly deserves to rule the stars. The second. Battle began immediately. The alien ships spread out and started firing their energy weapons at the 3 human vessels. But this time, the humans were ready. Captain Kelly Brooks took her ship Rangers straight at the enemy formation. Her ships' thick shields absorbed the worst of the alien attack, while Jake and Rick moved their ships to attack from the sides. The Rangers' heavy weapons fired again and again, forcing the aliens to focus on her while the other two human ships got into better positions. Defiant moved like a dancer through the battle, using her speed and quick turning to avoid the worst enemy fire. Ben Carter worked at his weapons station, adjusting the frequency of their energy beams based on Dan Parker's scientific data. Each shot seemed to hurt the alien ships more than before. The Phoenix was even faster, darting between the larger ships like a small bird avoiding big, slow hawks. Rick Stone pushed his ship to its limits, getting close enough to the alien vessels to target their weak spots before racing away from their return fire. "This is working," Amy Rodriguez called from her engineering station on the Defiant. "Their ships are having trouble healing the damage from our modified weapons." But the aliens were learning too. They began to change their formation, trying to trap the faster human ships. One alien vessel managed to get a clear shot at the Phoenix, and Rick's ship shook as energy beams hit her hull. "Rick, get out of there," Kelly's voice came over the battle communications. "I'm trying," Rick replied, his voice tight with effort. "But they have me boxed in." Jake made a quick decision. "Ben, target the alien ship attacking the Phoenix." All power to weapons. The Defiant turned toward the alien vessel that was hunting Rick's ship. Jake's crew worked together like they had trained for years. Lisa coordinated communications between all three ships. Amy pushed their damaged engines to give them just a little more speed. Dan calculated the best targeting solutions for their weapons. Ben fired with deadly accuracy. Their combined attack struck the alien ship just as it was about to deliver a killing blow to the Phoenix. The modified energy beams tore through the alien hull, causing the biological parts of the ship to convulse and die. The alien vessel began to spin out of control, its living components failing. "One down," Rick called out as his ship escaped from the trap. But there were still 5 alien ships left, and the human vessels were taking damage. The Ranger had lost her forward shields. The Phoenix had a hole in her hull that Rick's crew was trying to patch. The Defiant's engines were making worse noises and giving even less power. "We need to end this quickly," Kelly said over the communications channel. "Our ships cannot take much more of this beating." Jake studied the tactical display, looking for something they could use. The alien ships were still in formation, still coordinating their attacks perfectly. But maybe that coordination was also a weakness. "Dan," Jake said, "you said their ships are part biological. Are they connected to each other somehow?" Dan looked at his instruments more carefully. "Sir, I am reading some kind of quantum energy patterns between their ships. It is like they are sharing information directly, mind to mind. What happens if we disrupt that connection?" "I do not know, sir, but it might cause confusion in their formation." Jake made another quick decision. It was risky, but they were running out of options and time. "All ships, this is Morrison," he announced. "I am transmitting new targeting data. We are going to hit all their ships at the same time with everything we have. One coordinated attack with our modified weapons, focused on disrupting their biological systems." "Understood," Kelly replied. "Ready when you are," Rick added. Jake looked around his bridge at his crew. They were tired and hurt, but they were still fighting. Still human. "Fire," he ordered. 3 human ships, battered and outnumbered, fired all their weapons at once. The modified energy beams struck the alien formation like lightning, disrupting the biological systems that connected the ships to each other. The effect was immediate. The perfect alien formation fell apart as individual ships lost contact with their fleet coordination. Some aliens began firing at empty space, confused about where the human ships were. Others tried to ram their own allies, unable to tell friend. From enemy dot in the chaos that followed, the 3 human ships pressed their attack. They had found the aliens' weakness, and they were not going to waste the opportunity. The second battle was far from over. But for the first time, the humans had hope that they might actually win. The battle lasted 6 hours and turned the peaceful Kepler 442 star system into a graveyard of twisted metal and burning alien flesh. The 3 human ships moved like wolves hunting a herd, using every trick they could think of to stay alive. Against the larger alien fleet, Captain Kelly Brooks had taken the lead in her ship Ranger, using her thick armor to absorb the worst enemy fire, while Jake Morrison and Rick Stone coordinated attacks from different angles. The modified weapons that Dan Parker had designed were working better than anyone had hoped, but they still faced 6 alien ships that were each bigger and more powerful than any human vessel. Captain Morrison, Amy Rodriguez's voice came through the communication system from the Defiance engine room. I am reading huge energy spikes from the big alien ship. Whatever they are charging up, it is going to be very bad for us. On the bridge of the small scout ship Phoenix, Rick Stone was pushing his vessel to its limits. His ship twisted and turned through patterns of enemy fire that would have been impossible for a larger vessel to survive. His pilot, Lieutenant Sarah Kim, was performing miracles at the controls, making the ship dance through space like it was alive. Rick, Kelly's voice came through the battle communication network. We need to destroy that big ship before it can fire whatever it is building up to use against us. My ship is too damaged to make the attack run. Jake studied the tactical display. On his screen, the alien flagship was indeed massive, at least 5 times bigger than any human ship. Its hull pulsed with strange biological lights that were getting brighter and brighter. The ship had stopped moving and was putting all its power into charging some kind of super weapon. I will make the attack run, Jake decided. Dan, how long do we need to touch their hull for your electromagnetic disruptor to work? 30 seconds. Of direct contact, minimum, Dan replied from his science station. But sir, that means getting close enough to actually touch their ship. The radiation from their biological systems alone could kill everyone on our ship. Jake looked around his bridge. Lisa had a bandage on her left arm, where metal fragments had cut her during the battle, but she was still working at her communications post. Ben had dark circles under his eyes from hours of constant fighting, but his hands were steady on the weapons controls. Amy's reports from the engine room told a story of ship systems held together by determination and spare parts, but they were still fighting, still refusing to give up, still human. All ships, this is Morrison, Jake announced over the communication network. We are going to ram the flagship. I need you to cover our approach and make sure someone survives to tell Earth what happened here. Like hell, Kelly shot back immediately. Jake, if you are doing something stupid, we are all doing something stupid. That is what being human means. Agreed, Rick added from his smaller ship. Besides, someone needs to make sure you do not miss your target. What happened next would later be called the miracle of Kepler 442. Military schools would study it for generations, trying to understand how 3 small human ships, battered and outnumbered, managed to execute a coordinated attack that should have been impossible. The Ranger and Phoenix created a devastating crossfire that forced the alien escort ships to break the protective formation around the flagship. Kelly's heavy weapons hammered at the enemy ships, while Rick's fast scout ship darted in and out, targeting their weak spots with surgical precision. Meanwhile, the Defiant accelerated directly toward the massive alien flagship like a missile aimed at a mountain. Jake gripped his captain's chair as the ship shook from enemy fire and the strain of her damaged engines. Amy, I need everything you can give me, Jake called to his chief engineer. You have got it, Captain, Amy replied from the engine room. But I cannot promise these engines will not explode when we hit them. Dan, be ready with that disruptor the moment we make contact. Ready, sir, Dan said, his hands moving over his science controls dot at the last possible moment. As the Defiant was about to crash into the alien flagship's hull, Jake ordered something that no military manual had ever described. Emergency reverse. Thrusters full power. Bring us to a dead stop against their hull. It was a maneuver that used every emergency system. The ship had to halt their forward movement while maintaining contact with the enemy vessel. For 37 seconds that felt like hours, the Defiant sat pressed against the alien flagship's hull like a small parasite on a giant whale. Dan's electromagnetic disruptor worked at full power, sending waves of energy into the biological systems that made up part of the alien ship. The effect was immediate and terrible to watch. The flagship's biomechanical systems began to fail catastrophically. The living parts of the hull started to wither and die while the mechanical components overloaded and exploded. The massive ship's hull split open like a rotten fruit, revealing corridors filled with screaming aliens and failing life support systems. Hi, Commander Vextar's face appeared on Jake's main screen one last time. The alien commander's compound eyes were wide with something Jake had never seen in a Zephyrian before. Fear. "This is impossible," Vextar whispered, his voice no longer confident and commanding. "We are the apex predators of this galaxy. We have conquered 1,000 worlds. We have destroyed species that were older and more advanced than yours." Jake looked at the alien commander with something that might have been pity. The Defiant had pulled away from the dying flagship and was now watching it tear itself apart. From the inside, "You made one mistake, High Commander," Jake said calmly. "You thought that because we explore peacefully, we cannot fight when we need to. You forgot that humans are the apex predators of Earth, and Earth is a very dangerous planet." The flagship exploded in a ball of fire and biological matter that lit up space for thousands of kilometers. The explosion was so powerful that it destroyed 2 of the remaining alien ships that had been too close to their command vessel. The 3 surviving alien ships, suddenly without their leader and facing an enemy that had just done the impossible, began to retreat toward the edge of the star system. Their perfect formation was gone. Their confidence was shattered. They fled like animals running from a forest fire, but Jake knew this was just the beginning. Somewhere in the depths of space, the Zephyrian Dominion was receiving reports of their defeat, and they would not take the news well. "Damage report," Jake called to his crew. "Engines are barely working," Amy reported. "Life support is stable, but we have lost half our power systems. We need major repairs before we can fight again." "Communications?" Jake asked. "Still working," Lisa replied. "Earth Command has been monitoring our battle. They want a full report." "Science stations?" "Functional," Dan said. "Sir, I have been analyzing the wreckage from the alien ships. I think I understand more about how they work now. Their biological and mechanical systems are more integrated than we thought. If we can learn to disrupt that integration on a larger scale." Jake nodded. "Write up everything you have learned. We are going to need every advantage we can get." Rick Stone's voice came over the communication system from the Phoenix. "Jake, Kelly, we just intercepted alien communications. They are calling for reinforcements. A lot of reinforcements." Kelly's tired voice added, "How many ships are we talking about?" "Conservative estimate," Rick replied, "several thousand. They are mobilizing their entire fleet to come after us." Jake felt a cold knot form in his stomach. 3 ships had barely survived against 6. How could humanity possibly face thousands? But then he looked around his bridge at his crew. They were tired, hurt, and scared, but they were still working, still fighting, still refusing to give up. "Then we better get back to Earth and prepare for the real war," Jake said, "because I have a feeling that everything we have done so far was just the opening move." As the 3 battered human ships began their long journey back to Earth, they carried with them something more valuable than any weapon: proof. that humans could defeat the galaxy's most feared predators. The question now was whether that proof would be enough to save their species from extinction. 2 weeks after the Battle of Kepler 442, Earth's deep space watching stations detected something that made everyone reach for their strongest coffee and start praying. The Zephyrian response was not just another fleet of ships. It was the largest armada anyone had ever seen. Admiral Patricia Manning stood in the command center of Luna Base, staring at the tactical display with growing worry. Red dots representing enemy ships stretched across the holographic projection like a cloud of angry wasps. She was 58 years old, with gray hair and scars on her hands from her days as a fighter pilot. She had seen many battles, but nothing like this. How many ships? She asked Commander Tony Hayes, her intelligence officer. Best guess? 3,000 ships, Mom. They are coming from 7 different star systems, all heading straight for Earth. They will be here in 6 days. Patricia nodded grimly. Earth's entire space navy had 47 combat ships, most of them converted exploration vessels like the Defiant. The math was simple and terrifying. Even if every human ship destroyed 10 alien vessels, they would still lose. What is our fleet status? She asked. Admiral Chun has the first fleet positioned near Jupiter. Admiral Rodriguez has the second fleet at Mars. Captain Morrison and his task force are still traveling back from Kepler 442, reported her aide, Lieutenant Colonel Sam Foster. Patricia studied the display, her mind working through possibilities. Normal military thinking said they should fall back to Earth's orbital defense platforms and create a defensive ring around humanity's home world. But Patricia had spent 30 years in the military, and she knew that sometimes the best defense was a surprise attack. Get me a priority communication channel to all fleet commanders, she ordered, and wake up every retired admiral on Earth. We are going to need every smart person we can find. Meanwhile, aboard the damaged Defiant, Captain Jake Morrison was dealing with his own problems. The ship's faster-than-light drive had been damaged in the battle, forcing them to travel at normal speeds. They would arrive at Earth just as the alien armada did, if they were lucky. Sir? Lisa Grant called from her communication station. We are receiving a transmission from Earth. It is Admiral Lanning. A screen flickered to life, showing Patricia's weathered face. Behind her, Jake could see the controlled chaos of a military command center preparing for the fight of its life. People in uniform moved quickly between stations, their faces serious and focused. Captain Morrison, Patricia said, I need you to listen carefully. Our scientists have been studying the battle recordings from Kepler 442. They think they have found something important about the aliens. Dan Parker looked up from his science console. Admiral, if this is about the electromagnetic disruptors, we already sent all our technical data to Earth. It is not about the weapons, Doctor, Patricia replied. It is about the Zephyrians themselves. Tell me, during your battle with High Commander Vextar, did you notice anything unusual about how they gave and followed orders? Jake thought back to the battle. They seemed to follow Vextar's commands without question. When he died, they fell apart pretty quickly. They looked confused, like they did not know what to do without him. Exactly. Our alien biology experts think the Zephyrians might be a hive mind species. Not completely. They still have individual personalities, but they are connected through some form of quantum communication. It is why they work so well together in large groups, but it is also their biggest weakness. What kind of weakness? Jake asked, leaning forward in his captain's chair. Patricia smiled, and for the first time in weeks, it was a real smile. The kind that turns 3,000 ships into 3,000 very confused individuals. We think we have found a way to disrupt their quantum communication network. But we need someone who understands their technology to make it work. Jake looked around his bridge, his crew. They were tired and hurt, but they were still ready for whatever came next. "What do you need us to do, Admiral?" "I need you to get to Earth, Captain. Because in 5 days, we are going to try something that is either brilliant or completely crazy. Knowing humanity, it is probably both." As the Defiant continued its desperate race toward Earth, Jake realized that the real war was just beginning. Humanity had won its first battle through courage and smart thinking. Now they would find out if those qualities were enough to save their species from being wiped out. The Zephyrian Armada continued its steady advance. 3,000 ships carrying the anger of an empire that had never known defeat. They came seeking revenge against the small species that had dared to challenge their power. They had no idea what they were flying into. Admiral Patricia Manning had been working around the clock with Earth's best scientists and military minds. The plan they had developed was so risky that it made her stomach hurt to think about it. But it was their only chance. "Explain it to me one more time," she said to Dr. Helen Carter, Earth's leading expert on quantum physics. "The Zephyrians use quantum entanglement to communicate across their fleet," Dr. Carter explained, pointing to complex diagrams on her tablet. "It is like having one brain spread across thousands of bodies. If we can disrupt that quantum connection, each ship becomes isolated and confused. How do we disrupt it? We modify the electromagnetic disruptors that Captain Morrison's crew developed. Instead of targeting their ship systems, we target the quantum frequencies they use for communication. But there is a problem." "What problem?" Dr. Carter looked uncomfortable. "To generate enough disruption to affect their entire fleet, we need our ships to get very close to their formation. Close enough that most of our ships will probably be destroyed in the process." Patricia nodded slowly. She had expected something like this. In her experience, plans that could save humanity usually required people to risk their lives. How close? Within 5 kilometers of their fleet center. And the disruption field only lasts for about 10 minutes before they can adapt to it. 10 minutes to defeat 3,000 ships, Patricia said quietly. "Yes, ma'am." Patricia walked to the big window that looked out at Earth's blue surface. Down there, billions of people were going about their daily lives. Children were playing in parks. Adults were working at their jobs. Elderly people were sitting in gardens, feeding birds and watching clouds. None of them knew that their world was about to be attacked by aliens who wanted to destroy their entire species. "Send the plan to all fleet commanders," Patricia ordered, "and prepare a message for Earth's government. They need to know what we are planning." 3 days later, as the alien armada reached the outer edge of the solar system, humanity's small fleet was ready. The 47 human ships were scattered throughout the solar system in small groups, each one broadcasting a signal that would either save their species or announce their destruction. Captain Jake Morrison, now aboard a replacement ship called the Liberty, looked at his tactical display. The Zephyrian Armada was spreading out in perfect formation, each ship positioned to maximize their total firepower. It was beautiful, efficient, and completely dependent on their quantum communication network. "Dan," Jake said to his science officer, who had transferred with him to the new ship, "please tell me this is going to work." Dan Parker, now wearing the rank insignia of a fleet science officer, looked up from his calculations. "In theory, sir, disrupting their quantum entanglement should cause immediate confusion and panic. In practice, we are about to find out if theory matches reality." All stations, Patricia's voice came through the communication. "System from Luna Base. Execute Operation Broken Telephone in 3.2.1. Mark." Across the solar system, 47 human ships simultaneously activated their modified electromagnetic disruptors. The effect was invisible to normal eyes, but the results were immediately obvious. the perfect Zephyrian formation began to wobble, then break apart. As individual ships lost contact with the shared consciousness that had guided their species for millions of years. On the bridge of the Zephyrian flagship, Supreme Commander Kixthara experienced something no member of her species had felt in recorded history, complete and total isolation. The constant background hum of her people's shared thoughts simply disappeared. The real battle was about to begin. The Battle of Sol began at 6 a.m. Earth time, when the first wave of Zephyrian ships appeared at the edge of the solar system. What happened next would be remembered as either humanity's greatest victory or its final day. Admiral Patricia Manning had spread her small fleet throughout the solar system in a way that military historians would later call either brilliant or completely insane. The human ships were not positioned to defend Earth. Instead, they were scattered everywhere, each one broadcasting the same signal designed to disrupt the aliens' ability to think together. "All stations, this is Luna Base," Patricia announced, over the fleet communication channel. "Remember, we only get one chance at this. The moment we turn on the disruptor network, every alien in the system will know exactly where we are. Make every shot count." On the bridge of his new ship Liberty, Captain Jake Morrison watched the tactical display with nervous fascination. The alien armada was spreading out in perfect formation, like they had practiced this attack 1,000 times. Each ship knew exactly where to go and what to do. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. "Dan," Jake said quietly to his science officer, "please tell me this is going to work." Dan Parker looked up from his instruments. He had been working for 3 days straight, fine-tuning the quantum disruptors based on data from their first battle. "In theory, sir, breaking. Their quantum connection should cause immediate confusion and panic. In practice, we are about to find out if our theory is right." All stations, Patricia's voice came through the speakers. "Execute broken telephone in 3.2. Mark, across the solar system, 47 human ships turned on their modified electromagnetic disruptors at the exact same moment. The effect could not be seen with normal eyes, but the results were obvious immediately. The perfect alien formation began to shake and fall apart as individual ships lost contact with the shared mind that had guided their species for millions of years. On the bridge of the alien flagship, Supreme Commander Kixthara felt something no Zephyrian had experienced in recorded history: complete isolation. The constant background voices of her people's shared consciousness simply stopped existing. "Report!" She screamed at her bridge crew, but they were all staring at their controls in confusion. They had all lost the connection that was as natural to them as breathing. "High Commander," her weapons officer said with a shaking voice, "I cannot feel the fleet. They are not responding to quantum commands." Kixthara felt panic rising in her chest like cold water. Without the quantum network, her armada was not a coordinated fighting force. It was 3,000 individual ships with no way to work together effectively. "Use regular communications," she ordered. "Reform the battle formation." But it was too late. The human fleet had already begun their attack, and they were fighting like humans had always fought, as individuals who chose to work together rather than beings forced to think as one. Captain Kelly Brooks brought her ship Ranger, screaming out from behind Jupiter's largest moon, her weapons carving through a group of confused alien destroyers. The aliens tried to coordinate their response, but without their shared mind, they could not predict what the humans would do next. Lieutenant Commander Rick Stone led a group of small fighter ships in a precision attack against the enemy flagship. His pilots moved in patterns that would have been impossible for a hive-mind species to plan, because each pilot was making independent decisions based on what they saw in front of them. Jake Morrison found himself facing Supreme Commander Kixthara's flagship in single combat. The massive alien ship was 5 times bigger than the Liberty, but it was no longer part of a coordinated fleet. It was alone and confused. "Human vessel," Kixthara's voice came through the communication system. For the first time, Jake could hear fear in an alien commander's voice. "What have you done to us?" Jake looked around his bridge at his crew. Lisa was monitoring communications from 20 different human ships at once. Ben was coordinating weapons fire with 3 other vessels. Amy was keeping their engines running at maximum power while also helping other ships with their technical problems. Dan was analyzing alien quantum signatures in real time and sending updates to the entire human fleet. They were all working together, but each person was making their own decisions about how to help. No one was controlling their thoughts or telling them exactly what to do. "We showed you what it means to be alone," Jake replied to the alien commander. "Every human fights as an individual supreme commander, but we choose to fight together. Anyway, that is what makes us dangerous." The battle continued for 18 hours. The solar system became a maze of burning ships, energy beams, and explosions that lit up space like fireworks. But something amazing was happening. The human ships were not just surviving against impossible odds. They were winning without their quantum network. The alien ships could not coordinate their attacks. They began firing at empty space, confused about where the human ships were. Some aliens started shooting at their own allies, unable to tell friend from enemy without their shared consciousness to guide them. The humans, meanwhile, fought with a flexibility and creativity that the aliens had never seen before. When one human ship was damaged, others would immediately move to help without being ordered to do so. When a group of aliens tried to surround a human vessel, other human ships would appear from unexpected directions to break up the attack. Captain Kelly Brooks found herself protecting a damaged human destroyer while simultaneously coordinating attacks with ships that were light minutes away. Rick Stone's fighters were performing rescue operations while also striking at alien weak points. Jake Morrison was providing tactical advice to ships throughout the system while fighting his own battles. It was chaos, but it was human chaos. Organized confusion that somehow worked because everyone understood the goal and was free to figure out their own way to achieve it. Supreme Commander Kixthara watched her mighty armada fall apart around her. Ships that had conquered 100 worlds were now fleeing in panic. Crews that had never known defeat were surrendering rather than face an enemy they could not understand or predict. "This is not possible," she said to Jake during their final communication. "We are the most powerful military force in the galaxy. We have destroyed species that were older and more advanced than yours. You were powerful because you all thought the same way," Jake replied. "But that also made you predictable. We knew exactly what you would do because you could only do one thing, what your shared mind told you to do." Jake looked out at the battlefield, where human ships were accepting the surrender of alien vessels 10 times their size. "You made the mistake of thinking that because we do not share a single mind, we are weak. But our strength comes from the fact that every human can think differently, and we choose to work together anyway." When the battle finally ended, the Zephyrian armada was scattered across the solar system. Many ships had surrendered when their crews realized they could no longer fight effectively. Others had fled, seeking to return to alien space and reconnect with their quantum network. Supreme Commander Kixthara, her flagship damaged and her crew demoralized, appeared on Jake's screen one final time. "This is not over, human," she said. But her voice lacked the certainty that had marked every alien they had encountered before. "No," Jake agreed, watching as human ships began rescue operations for both their own crews and alien survivors. "But it is the beginning of something new. Your people have never had to think for themselves. Maybe it is time they learned how. As the surviving alien ships left the solar system, carrying news of their defeat back to their empire, Jake realized that humanity had done something unprecedented. They had not just won a war, they had fundamentally changed their enemy. 6 months later, reports began coming in from across the galaxy. The Zephyrian Dominion was breaking apart as individual commanders, separated from the quantum network, began making their own decisions. Some became warlords, others became explorers, and a few even reached out to other species in search of something they had never needed before: friendship. The galaxy would never be the same. And that, Jake thought, as he watched former enemies working together to rebuild damaged ships, was probably a very good thing.